Good evening, everyone. How are you? Hey, take a seat. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dream City Church. I just can't even begin to tell you what an honor and a privilege it is to be here at this church. I'm 37 years old, and my whole life I have seen pictures and videos of what God was doing at Phoenix First Assembly and videos of conferences, and I have been so inspired and touched and moved by what God has done in this house. So to be here with you tonight is just beyond an honor and a blessing for me. Do you guys think that you go to an incredible church? Will you give it up for Pastor Luke and Dream City Church? Well, I want to just take a second to introduce myself. My name is Mark. I am married to the most beautiful, incredible woman. Her name is Erica. We've been married for 16 years. Yeah, go ahead. I think Erica would agree that at least 9 or 10 of those have been really good years. So that's not bad. We have 2 beautiful children. I have a 13-year-old redheaded daughter. Her name is Melody. She is just the culmination of all things wonderful and sweet and dramatic and emotional. And it's just a lot going on in my house. So I covet your prayers, church. And I have a 10-year-old little boy whose name's Sawyer. And there's really no other way to put it. He is just God's gift to redneck America. When he was probably 5 or 6 years old, he came up to me and he said, "Dad, I don't want you to call me Sawyer anymore." I said, "Okay, Sawyer, what do you want me to call you instead?" He said, "Dad, I want you to call me Fast Snake from here on out." I said, "Okay, Fast Snake it is." So Fast Snake spends most of his days after school shirtless, shoeless, running through the woods with a blowgun, shooting at any animal that will sit still long enough while his mullet just blows in the Oklahoma breeze. And the most remarkable thing about it is that in Southeast Oklahoma, that's really not that abnormal at all. I mean, completely socially acceptable. So I just am so blessed with an amazing family. 3 years ago, we had the opportunity to become the lead pastors of a church called the King's House in McAlester, Oklahoma. I think many of them are tuning in tonight. Hi, King's House. I hope you're doing great tonight. It was just really a dream scenario that every young minister would look forward to. The church had been in a state of decline for 7 or 8 years. We were on the verge of bankruptcy. The church had shrunk to about 150 people. The pastor had recently had an affair. I mean, it was just really everything that a young pastor could hope and dream for. But we knew, Erica and myself, that God had brought us to McAlester for a reason. And we just began to seek God. How many of you here tonight believe that God still answers prayers? Come on. We began to seek God. We began to cry out. In prayer one morning, I asked God, "Lord, how are we going to get out of this financial situation?" At the time, we owed $2.4 million in debt. We were losing $30,000 a month. I mean, it was just, God, how are we going to get out of this financial situation? And I heard the Lord speak to me so clearly. He said, "Mark, you're going to give your way out of this situation." I said, "God, that doesn't make any sense." But I heard a very wise man say one time that ministry doesn't follow money, but money follows ministry. And if we'll get busy reaching people and loving people, that God will take care of the rest. Amen, Dream City. So we did. We began to give, and we began to sow, and we began to love on our community and reach out to our community. And God just began to move. Within the last 3 years of our little community of 16,000 people, 560 people have given their hearts to Jesus at the King's House. Just incredible. Absolutely incredible. We had the extreme honor of having Pastor Luke come and be at the King's House with us 6 or 8 weeks ago. And I know you're not surprised at this at all, but while he was there, God moved in a powerful way. The King's House was so challenged, was so inspired. It was as if we were just infused with hope and faith. Just hearing everything that God had been doing here at Dream City Church caused us to begin to dream bigger dreams and to believe God for some bigger things. And without me instigating it, without me promoting it, people all over the church body just began to pray and fast and seek God. At the time, the church had a $1.5 million debt. And in McAlester, Oklahoma, that felt insurmountable. But again, we just had this infusion of hope and faith. After Pastor Luke left, it just didn't feel that impossible anymore. I don't know how to describe it, but it felt so attainable hearing what God had been doing at this church. So my wife and I and the staff and several people throughout the body began to fast and pray. And we fasted for 40 days, and we were seeking God and praying and believing for bigger dreams and new dreams and for God to do something at the King's house. About 15 or 20 days in, I am literally getting nothing from the Lord. I mean, I feel like all I'm accomplishing is making myself really hungry. I mean, God, I'm seeking, I'm praying, and I'm just to the point of I'm texting Pastor Luke and saying, hey, man, I think I might be doing this wrong. Like, I need some pointers. It's not working. On September 14th, I get a text from an individual in the church. This individual asked me to come over that afternoon. She had something she wanted to discuss with me. To be honest with you, it's a wonderful individual, but wasn't always my biggest supporter. If somebody was going to say something negative, it was more than likely going to be this individual. So I was a little hesitant to go over there that day, to be completely honest with you. But I walked into their house that afternoon, and as soon as I walked in, they handed me a check. And the check was for the amount of $1.5 million. Yes. So as of September 14th, the King's house is completely debt-free. Thank you, Jesus. In a matter of 3 years, God took our church from bankrupt to debt-free. And I am just so excited tonight. I feel like I'm in good company tonight, but I believe that the God I serve is still in the business of doing miracles. Do you believe that, church? So again, it's just such an honor. We wanted to announce to the church, the miracle that God had done, and we built it up for a few weeks, and you don't want to miss this service. We have some huge news to share with you, and we really built it up. And we told the church the miracle that God had done and the fact that we're debt-free. And afterwards, we had this big celebration and a party, and we're serving walking tacos to everybody. And I'm in the serving line because I want to greet everybody and high-five and celebrate. And so, true story, not one, not two, but multiple people as they came through the serving line. I'm high-fiving and we're hugging, and isn't God great, and isn't He amazing? And multiple people said, well, Pastor Mark, I'm just a little disappointed. Well, what in the world are you disappointed? If you're disappointed this Sunday, there is no hope for you at the King's house. Well, I'm just a little disappointed. It's so great that we're debt-free, but what we were really hoping you were going to announce today is that the King's house was going to be a Dream City campus. So we're just a little disappointed. So true story. So I don't know if that is a knock on the King's house or if that's just a compliment to Dream City Church. But I want you to know that you are having a profound impact, not only here in Phoenix, but literally all over the world. I spoke to the staff this morning, and I just challenged them. When something is so incredible, when something is so extraordinary, if we're not careful, the extraordinary, we get used to it, and it can become so ordinary. I've been telling my wife this. We've been married for 16 years. Babe, when you've been married to greatness for 16 years, you start to take it for granted. I just don't want you to fall into that trap. Come on, man, where are you at tonight? Let me hear you. Yeah. Dream City Church, don't fall into the trap that Erica has fallen into. What God is doing here is extraordinary. Don't treat it like it's ordinary. What God's doing in this place is not happening in other places. You are so blessed, and God is so good. I want to speak to you tonight about passion in prayer. I know you've been in this 21 days of prayer, and you're meeting at 6 a.m., and so as I began to pray for this service, this is what the Holy Spirit just really dropped in my heart almost instantly when I began to prepare for this service. Years ago, when the kids were just young, before Sawyer was fast snake, he was quick little worm back then. He wasn't even. We lived near a lake, and at this lake was all these ducks and geese that lived there, and the kids just loved to go and feed bread to the ducks and geese. So we went there frequently. I'm always cheering for the underdog. I don't know why, but even when I'm throwing bread to geese, I'm always trying to throw it to the guy in the back or the little weak goose who's not getting as much. But that day, there was one particular goose who was so wildly aggressive. And it seemed like no matter where I threw the bread, this particular goose found a way to get the bread. I mean, I'm trying to get it to the dude in the back, but this goose was all over the place. I was beginning to get agitated at the goose. Apparently, the goose was beginning to get agitated at me as well, because he starts to look at me. And not just look at me, but like look at me. Like a little crazy in his eye, okay? He starts coming my direction. Now, again, I'm from Southeast Oklahoma. If you want to insult a man from Southeast Oklahoma, you ask him, hey, do you own a gun? That's a slap in the face. The question in Southeast Oklahoma is, how many guns do you own, friends? I mean, that's Oklahoma. And I'm a big outdoorsman, and we hunt and we fish, and I have shot hundreds, if not thousands, of ducks and geese. I mean, it's a way of life for us. So apparently some of my bravery is attached to the firearm that I'm carrying, because when that goose started heading at me, I'm ashamed to tell you, church, my first reaction was to kind of start backing up. Like, this goose has got a little bit crazy in his eye. The more I backed up, the more the goose pursued me. Okay? And I'm whistling out at this point, and I'm throwing him some bread like, okay, buddy. But the goose is still coming, to the point of I literally turn and run from the goose, hoping that the goose would quit. But friends, he did not quit. At this point, the goose is literally chasing me. I don't know if I'm just slow for a white guy or if the goose was really, really fast. But the goose outran me. Before I know it, I was being attacked by the goose, who's biting me through my pants. He broke skin. Blood is running down my leg. And at this point, I'm in a full-on frenzy, and I'm just throwing bread in every which direction. Oh, God, just stop. Please, you win. I'll never forget the look on Erica's face as I got back in the car that day. Like, whatever look is past disappointment, like disgust. And I just sat in the front seat and just slowly rocked. And she didn't have to say it. Her eyes said it all. Like, you are not the man I thought you were, Mark Hennon. I learned a valuable lesson that day, church, that I think we can grab a hold of tonight and can really revolutionize some things in our lives. The aggressive goose gets the bread. It's the truth. That's the lesson I learned tonight. Listen, I want you to know that God responds to passion. I want to speak to you about passion in prayer, but God responds to passion. I don't fully understand it. I don't fully wrap my mind around the concept, but if you look through the Word of God, every great man and woman of God, well, they all had shortcomings and they all had massive failures and made huge mistakes, but every great man and woman of God were passionate people. We're willing to do things that other people weren't willing to do. We're willing to step out of the boat when other people were too afraid. God responds to passion. In James 5:16, we see this verse about prayer. It says, confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The complacent and lazy prayer of a righteous man avails much. No, that's not at all what it says. It says the effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man or woman availeth much. That word fervent means this in the King James Version. It means hot. It means boiling. It means ardent, earnest, excited, animated. This is the type of prayer that moves the heart of God, because God responds to passion, and it responds to passion in our prayer life. In Luke chapter 18, Jesus gives us an illustration to really drive this point home in a very real and life applicable way. Verse 2 of Luke 18 says, in a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. Jesus is making it so clear this is not a believer. This is a principle that I'm trying to show you, because this man doesn't fear God or care what people think. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, grant me justice against my adversary. For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice so that she won't eventually come and attack me. This woman had something in common with that crazy goose. And the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him night and day? Dream City Church, God responds to passion. We need passion in our prayers. If we believe that God responds to passion, the question we need to be asking ourselves tonight is, how do I get more passion in my life? How do I get more passion in my prayer life is the question we need to be asking ourselves. Before we break off into our fusion groups, I just want to give you 3 points about passion tonight that I hope are going to really impact you. The first point is, as we ask ourselves the question, how do I get more passion? The first point I want to make is simply this. We need to pray for passion. Point number 1, we need to pray for passion. James chapter 4, verse 2 says this, you don't have because you don't ask. Pastor Luke shared this verse with us last week, and it's so simple, and it almost feels too easy, yet it is so profound. We don't have simply because we don't ask. I believe that God has incredible blessings and incredible gifts in store for every believer in this room. Do you believe that tonight? Man, I believe that God has, his word says that he came to give us life and life more abundantly. He has passion for you. He has zeal for you. He has an adventurous life to the extreme. These are the gifts that he has for us. He's simply waiting for us as his sons and daughters to come before his throne with boldness because of the blood of Jesus Christ and say, Lord, I need some more passion in my life. Lord, I believe that's a gift that you have for me. God, I need some more passion in my prayer life. Point number 1, we need to pray for passion. Point number 2 about passion is this. Passion has a price, but the reward is greater. In John chapter 20, Jesus had just been crucified. It's the 3rd day after Jesus' crucifixion. In John 20, verse 1, it says this, early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark. Look at your neighbor really fast if you wouldn't say early, while it was still dark. This is an important part of this verse, early, while it was still dark. Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one who Jesus loved, and said, they have taken the Lord out of the tomb. We don't know where they have put him. So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Verse 4, I just find this verse so hilarious. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. I have no idea how that's relevant to the resurrection story at all. But one of these days when we're in heaven, if we're having some type of Olympic Games, and if one of those events is like a 100-meter or a 50-yard dash, if you happen to be a team captain that day, pick John. He's so much faster than Peter. This is crucial. Peter's a great guy, but John's just faster, okay? Nothing against Peter. They both made it to the tomb. They look inside. They see the cloth. They see the linen that Jesus had been wrapped in. Verse 10, let's pick it back up. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying. You catch that? The disciples came. They left. They went back to where they were staying. Verse 11, now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. Mary was the first one there, friends, early in the morning, while it was still dark. And after the other disciples had left, she was the last one to leave. You need to understand tonight that there is a price associated with passion. There is a price. I don't know what it's like here at Dream City, but at the King's House in McAllister, if I announce a fall fest with free food, and if I announce on the same day a prayer meeting at 6 a.m., I'm sad to report to you, friends, that a whole bunch more people are coming to the free foods. A whole bunch more. Because 6 a.m. prayer costs you something. There's a price associated with the passion. But what I want you to know tonight is that the reward of passion so far outweighs any price associated with that, friends. Because when Peter and John went back to the other disciples and Mary stayed, Mary was the first one there. That's a cost. Mary was the last one to leave. That's a cost. But Mary was also the first one to behold the resurrected Christ. She was the first one to see him and experience him. First one there, that's a cost. Last one to leave, that's a cost. Experiencing Jesus, that's priceless, church. The reward of passion so far outweighs any cost associated with it. Point number 3, in closing, passion makes a way for your promise. In Numbers chapter 33, starting in verse 7, now Moses used to take a tent and pitch it outside the camp some distance away, calling it the tent of meeting. Anyone inquiring of the Lord would go to the tent of meeting outside the camp. And whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people rose and stood at the entrance to the tent, watching Moses until he entered. As Moses went into the tent, the pillar of cloud would come down and stay at the entrance while the Lord spoke with Moses. Whenever the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance to the tent, they all stood and worshiped, each at the entrance to their tent. The Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. How remarkable. But this is the part of the verse I really want you to key on tonight. Then Moses would return to the camp. But his young aide Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent. Now it's undeniable tonight, friends, that Moses was a mighty man of God who spoke to the Lord face to face, who is called a friend of God. I don't know if there's a greater honor than to be called a friend of God. God used Moses in unprecedented signs and wonders and miracles, and it was just remarkable what God did with his life. But the reality is that Moses did not walk in the promise that God had for the Israelites. God used him in powerful ways, but he missed the promise. However, there was a young boy who, after Moses had left the tent, said, I'm not leaving this place of prayer. I'm not leaving this place of God's presence. There's something here that I know I need. There's something about this place that I just can't get enough of. There was a passion inside of this young man, and it was this young man who did not leave God's presence, who did not leave that place of prayer. It was this young man that led the Israelites into the promise of what God had for all of those people. Passion makes a way for your promise. I believe wholeheartedly tonight as I stand before you, and I even sense the presence of the Lord here in such a real way tonight. I believe with all my heart that God is going to use this church, Dream City Church, to make Arizona known as a Christian state. Oh my gosh, I believe that tonight. I believe that God's going to use many of you in this room as Dream City Church casts this net of love all over Arizona. And not just Arizona, but nationally. I believe your influence is going to increase globally. I believe your influence is going to increase. I don't think you have any idea what God is ultimately going to do with this place. I came for just the last 10 or 15 minutes of Freedom Square last night. Wow. This place was electric. It was incredible. I believe that God is raising up the leaders of this house. Leaders within this house are going to shape a culture, are going to be a mouthpiece of God to see righteousness and morality restored. I believe that God is going to do all of those things. But it takes somebody and it takes somebodies. Those dreams and those promises don't just happen. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we just had a magic fairy wand and poof? I would have been debt-free a long time ago, I promise, if I had one of those wands. But it takes somebody or it takes somebodies saying, God, I'm willing to be that person. I'm going to stay in the tent. I'm going to be the first one here. I'm going to be the last one to leave. God, I understand and trust that you respond to passion, that you respond to faith. I believe God wants to use each and every one of you here tonight in a remarkable way to make a difference in the kingdom of God, to see God's heavenly vision become an earthly reality. God responds to passion in our prayer, church. Can I pray for you tonight? Lord, I love you so much. I thank you for the extreme honor and privilege to stand on this stage and speak your words to this body. Holy Spirit, I just ask you to begin to stir the hearts of these people in this room tonight, to stir a passion in our hearts. God, as we cry out to you tonight, God, I'm asking you, put a passion in our hearts for you. Put a passion in our hearts for prayer. God, make us willing to pay the price, to be passionate people, because God, we know and understand that the reward of passion so far supersedes any cost that may be associated. And God, as we seek you and as you stir that passion and those dreams in our heart, God, I thank you that's going to unlock the door to the next promises that you have for this place. God, I give you the praise and the glory tonight. You are so good. In Jesus' name, all of God's people said tonight. Thank you so much, Stream City Church. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Hey, let's all stand to our feet. We're going to get ready for groups. How many appreciate that amazing word tonight? That was just so powerful.